Hi everyone, welcome back to Cello Tips. So today we're going to go over one of the most largely requested topics for this series, which is how to learn a new piece. So I have a method for this that is perhaps a little bit different from what is most common or what other people might tell you to do. And it's quite an extensive method, and it might sound a little bit too extensive and like a little bit too much work, but it has a real purpose, and if you are willing to try it, I'm sure that you will notice its enormous benefits and how good it feels inside you and your hands and your body and your mind and your heart. Um, so the idea of this concept is basically to go against this issue that a lot of people run into when they are learning a new piece, that they start by just picking up the cello, taking the sheet music, and just going for it. And whatever happens, happens. And then they just keep trying again and again and again until there are less mistakes, until they can play through the piece. This is fine. It's not a terrible method, but the issue with it is that your interpretation of the music is highly influenced by technical hurdles and technical conveniences. See, if you just come straight at the piece without really having the music inside you yet, and you just go for it with your hands first, then the technique is going to be the determining factor in many, if not all, of your musical decisions, your phrasing, and the story that you tell. So my suggestion is to do it the other way around, where before you go anywhere near the cello with the piece, you get the music inside you. You study the music extensively. You read about the music, about the composer, about the time while it was written, about the area that it was written in, and then you let the music really, marinate inside your body and your soul and your heart and your mind, so that you really become one with this. And only after you've done that and you really have formed your interpretation of the piece through these practices, then you come to the instruments and you bring all of those beautiful images and ideas to life through your technique. So the technique is actually basically the last step in the process of learning the piece. So I'll go a little bit more into detail now, but that's basically the premise of this idea and what it's founded upon. And a lot of people, they might say, well, is this really worth it? Like, in the end, it's probably going to sound the same either way, right? And no, it won't sound the same, because any difference that you do in the way that you prepare something, it's going to have an effect on the outcome, no matter what you change. And this is a huge change. So I would like to suggest that it's going to be a more authentic, more true, and more real interpretation, because it's founded upon something and you know the story that you're telling. You've lived that story within yourself, rather than just saying the notes or saying the words on a page without comprehending them or meaning something through them. But you already are the story, and then you have the information that you need in order to tell it truthfully and authentically. So that's the idea. So more specifically, I would say, before you come to the instruments, there are three main steps. There are a couple of optional steps after that if you want to really get into it, but there are three main steps. The first one is to learn as much as you can about the music by reading literature, reading about the composer themselves, as well as reading about the place that they were living in, what was going on historically at that time, and also to listen to as much music as you can by that composer other than the piece that you're learning. So, for example, if you're learning Beethoven's Sonata for cello and piano, you should at least listen to all the other works that Beethoven wrote for cello and piano, as well as all the violin sonatas. You know, if you have time, all the piano sonatas, all the other chamber music. You know, if you're really feeling adventurous, you can listen to his complete works, complete published works. And once you've done that, you have so much better of an understanding of his musical language. And his music, you will be like fluent in Beethoven's language of composition, which makes you so much more fit to be an authentic interpreter of his music and to understand what is going on the inside of his music. So that's something I really recommend. Okay, the second big step is to specifically study the score of the music on a technical level. So this means utilizing your knowledge of musical structure and musical theory. If you don't know much about that, I highly suggest that you find some resources. I'm sure there's tons online where you can read about all these things, because this is really essential to understanding and playing any kind of music with a true thoughtful basis and informed basis. So that's really important to get in depth into the score, you know, figure out why the composer made all the decisions they did, and really get to know it inside out. Okay, so once you've read all about the music and the surrounding information, and you've studied the music, you've studied the score, then the third step is to kind of combine the information that you've learned on the outside with yourself. So this is more of a free form sort of idea, but just, you know, take walks, you know, imagine the music around you, think about the music, breathe the music, live it, and just let it become part of you, so that you're really, once again, one with the music and with the composer. So this is the step in the process when everything sort of gels together and your interpretation becomes personal also. So it's not just some objective, factual thing, but it's very personal and emotional on a very intimate level. Okay? Then there are a couple optional steps. The first one is listening to recordings of the piece itself. So this is a bit of a controversial subject, right? Many people, they think you shouldn't listen to any recordings of a piece you're playing because it will bias your interpretation. Maybe it will, who knows, really. Personally, I would rather, just because I'm a very curious musician and I want to hear what everybody else does, I'm very curious about that. I want to learn from everybody around me. So I will listen to basically as many recordings as I can find of the piece, actually. And I think that can be very beneficial and very helpful sometimes. The pitfall would be listening to only like one recording extensively and just listening to that recording over and over and over again. And the problem there is that you become biased by that one interpretation, which is only somebody else's take, one person's take on that music, when this music should be really universal and it can mean something different to every single person. So I would prefer to listen to many, many, many different recordings, and then you have this very broad and diverse idea of the music and of how it could be played potentially. And the other optional step is to do some mental practice. So for many years, I was doing this for several hours every day. And it can be especially helpful if you're experiencing physical pain from overplaying, repetitive stress, injuries, and things like that. So to do mental practice can be extremely helpful. And mental practice can be many different things. It can be studying the score, as we did, and just doing that even more in depth. It can also be actually like imagining yourself playing the piece, imagining yourself perhaps making a few mistakes and then going back and adjusting them in your head until you get it right. This is incredibly powerful technique. Seriously, seriously powerful stuff. Lots of great professional athletes do this to visualize the success, to visualize what things going the way that you want them to go. Okay, so once we've done all of that, I know it seems like a lot, but the thing is, now you're going to come to the cello. All the work has been done, right? You know exactly what you want to say, you know exactly what the music means and what it means to you. So this is really the final step, just to get all of that into your fingers and get it out into the air, into the people around you. So technically, when there are difficult passages, obviously slow practice is very helpful. I would highly recommend that, and just build them up until you can get it at the tempo you desire. Yeah, this is really just a step about getting things into your fingers. As I said, you've already done all of the work that needs to be done. So a lot of people, they like to do sort of drilling in their practice sessions where they do little exercises about the music. I mean, sometimes this can be helpful, but I would urge you not to become too obsessed with this sort of practicing, because it takes you out of the music in a way. And you want to be immersed in the music, and you want to become part of the music, and you want it to become part of you. So I would encourage rather to think about the phrase that you want. Think about the emotion that you want to convey, and really go for that in your practicing. Also, run-throughs are extremely important and extremely helpful, because these run-throughs give you the context of the whole work. And when you perform, you're going to perform the whole piece. You're not going to perform just some little section of it. So that context is extremely important, and it's going to determine how you feel in each moment and how the music feels in each moment too. So that's another really important thing to do. Lots of run-throughs. So that's basically the process to prepare a piece. We always are learning more and more about music. It's a lifetime project, really. But in my experience with this process, the steps at the beginning, before you come to the instruments, they take less and less time as you go on, because you become more familiar with these composers that we play so often. Bach, Beethoven, Mendelssohn, Haydn, whoever. These composers we play a lot, and we play a lot of their music. So as we become more familiar with their language and the literature around them and about them, these steps about preparing the music become more efficient, because we already know so much about them. And of course, we always want to learn more, but a lot of the work has been done at that point. So then, when you come to the instrument, finally at the end, in my experience, you could do this final step of just beginning the piece at the instrument and get it to performance level in 2 weeks, I would say. Basically for any piece, even full half-hour length sonatas and concertos. In my experience, this is totally doable, especially if you get all the serious work done before you come to the instruments. Yeah? Sometimes it can be helpful to give yourself 3 weeks. That can be nice. But essentially, for most purposes, 2 weeks is totally enough time to prepare something. So, those are my thoughts for you. I hope that you guys find this interesting or helpful in some sort of way. I'm very curious to hear how your preparation processes are different from mine. If you'd like, please feel free to share those in the comments below. And lastly, I would just caution that in your work, in your preparation process, it's very, very important to go about this in a healthy way, and to take many breaks whenever you need it. Take breaks. It's so important to remember that the music is about life. Life is not about music. Even if it may seem so at times, life is not about music. Life is about so many other bigger things. And the music is an expression of those things. So, yeah, overworking is real. It's definitely a problem that many of us can run into. And if you're not careful, it could have some very serious consequences physically with injury or mentally with burnouts or other issues. So, yeah, please be very careful about that because music is for all of us. We all want to share music with each other. We all want to hear each other's beautiful music. But if we obsess over these things in an unhealthy way, that can be compromised. So remember, life should always come first. Yeah, music is about the things that we experience in life. It's an expression of those things. So apologize. This was a bit of a longer video, but I think it's important to go over the specifics of these sort of things in this process. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care.